Oh my, look who's here. Without saying a word, Amado pulled the trigger and killed the boss. The henchmen around him froze in shock. Since 1989, when Mexican drug lord Miguel was captured, his criminal federation had collapsed, and the cartels carved up their territories to rule independently. In Ciudad Juarez, the leader was Aguilar, while Amado, the man who had helped topple Miguel, had too few connections and resources, forcing him to settle as the cartel's number 2. Months later, while transporting a shipment from Colombia, Amado's plane malfunctioned near the airport. Thanks to his flying skills, the plane crashed, but both he and the cargo survived intact. As his men arrived to unload, several military vehicles rolled up. Amado fled with his crew, but the army chased them down. His men tried to fire back, but the soldiers had heavy weapons. After a brutal chase, all his men were killed, and Amado was captured alive and taken to a nearby prison. 3 months later, thanks to Aguilar's bribes, Amado was released. Upon meeting Aguilar, the first thing he brought up was the plan he had mentioned before prison, to secure a warehouse in El Paso, just 10 kilometers from the U.S., so they wouldn't put all their eggs in one basket. Aguilar still refused, saying it would only raise costs. Days later, Aguilar introduced Amado to Hank, a powerful politician in the PRI. If the president was the face of ultimate power, Hank was the hand pulling the strings, controlling every party decision, even choosing the next president. Hank planned to buy land in Ciudad Juarez, but Aguilar refused to sell. Hank didn't push, telling them to think it over. Amado kept quiet, but thought Aguilar's move was foolish. At the time, the US and Mexico were signing a free trade agreement. If successful, Ciudad Juarez, a key border city, would face massive changes. After days of thought, Amado decided to take Aguilar out, leading to the opening scene. From then on, Amado became the boss of Ciudad Juarez. His first move was intercepting Hank's plane and handing over the land deeds. The land is yours, no compensation needed. Hank, of course, didn't believe in free gifts, but Amado had done his homework. Hank had laundered money for the Félix brothers in Tijuana, meaning he could work with Amado too. Where's your partner? He's dead, it's just me now. Recognizing Amado as a valuable ally, and with the trade agreement now signed, Hank became his gateway to take the business to the next level. Meanwhile, the Sinaloa cartel was struggling. El Chapo was at a beauty pageant, eyeing the crown winner of Sinaloa. His men told him the top 2 leaders were waiting outside. He told a judge, "Pick contestant number 10 as the winner." Outside, he learned their shipment had reached the US-Mexico border only to be stopped by Tijuana, claiming they hadn't paid the toll fee. "El Azul, I already paid. They say you didn't." Tijuana's location gave the Félix brothers total control over a key smuggling route, just 30 kilometers from California and under 200 kilometers from Los Angeles. Sinaloa, on the central Pacific coast, could only move product through Tijuana, meaning they had to pay a hefty fee. A few days earlier, they had attended the Félix family wedding. The sister married a famous lawyer. At the reception, Palma tried to talk business. "Not today, brother, just enjoy the food." Palma dropped it, but now Félix's men were causing trouble. He suggested buying a section of the border route, but El Azul was sure they'd refuse. "If they don't agree, we'll take it." "Calm down, El Chapo. El Azul, we need the money from this shipment." The 3 leaders of the Sinaloa cartel went to see Mayo, an independent drug trafficker in Mazatlan, Sinaloa. Mayo didn't belong to any cartel. Years ago, the Félix brothers had tried to recruit him to Tijuana, but he preferred working solo. They explained Sinaloa's current struggles and hoped Mayo could help persuade the Félix brothers to sell them the Imperial Valley territory. It was a barren desert Tijuana barely used, but for Sinaloa, it was more than enough. Mayo refused to negotiate for them but tipped them off. The Félix family was about to throw a birthday party for the older brother in the south. They could go and make their own deal. Following Mayo's lead, the 3 arrived and presented their proposal. The older Félix brother thought for a moment and said, "We'll leave the desert to you. $3 million a year, 2-year lease. After that, we renegotiate." This meant renting the Imperial Valley, far from what Sinaloa had hoped for, but with no better options, they agreed. Before leaving, they were invited to stay for his 40th birthday celebration. He had no idea Sinaloa was plotting a war, and tonight's party was the perfect opportunity. The whole Félix family gathered in a bar to celebrate. As usual, the younger Félix brother teased his new brother-in-law. "Ever seen my sister angry? Shouldn't you be worried about her, instead of me?" Everyone laughed, praising the groom's wit. After a drink, the younger brother pulled the elder away to reveal his surprise, a light show on a boat. The older Félix was delighted. Then he spotted 2 police officers downstairs. Not wanting them to ruin the party, he handed bodyguard David some cash to send them away. But when David went down, he saw 2 more officers on the second floor, guns trained on the brothers. Alerted, David looked down again to see the officers below talking on radios. Without hesitation, he opened fire. Chaos erupted instantly. The two upstairs sprayed bullets toward the balcony. David killed one, fighting and retreating at the same time. More men in police uniforms flooded the bar. David fought back with a single gun against the swarm. The Felix brothers used the moment to escape out the other side, but the police chased hard. The younger Felix shouted for everyone to run, but when he turned, he saw his brother-in-law lagging behind, and then El Chapo, disguised as a cop, shot him down. Outnumbered, he had no choice but to flee. El Chapo searched furiously but couldn't find his target. Hearing sirens closing in, he pulled back. The Felix brothers left the scene in a hurry. Their sister Enadina arrived and checked every car, but her husband was nowhere to be found. One look at her brothers' faces told her the truth. Her newlywed husband was dead at El Chapo's hands. We will make them pay. Her eldest brother didn't promise anything. Even though Sinaloa had fired the first shot, he needed Amado's approval before retaliating, but Amado was nowhere to be found. For days, Enadina refused to eat or drink. When she emerged, she asked, "Is Joaquin Guzman Laura, El Chapo, dead yet?" "We're working on it," her brother said. She turned and walked back inside. Watching his grieving sister, the elder Felix made up his mind. No matter the cost, they would take El Chapo's head. Amado earned the title Lord of the Skies because he built an entirely new smuggling network, one that changed the rules of the drug trade forever. The three biggest drug lords of the 1980s all viewed their cartels as a unified empire. In the early 1990s, although he wasn't yet the top kingpin, Amado began a completely new method. He divided the Juarez cartel into multiple units, each handling a specific function, operating independently, and unaware of the other's existence. Amado called this the hive system. Even if one unit failed, the rest could keep running smoothly. The queen bee behind it all was Amado himself. Of course, he couldn't manage everything alone, so he brought in his brother Vicente to handle problems. Financial matters were handed over to Corral, a newly recruited university graduate with an impressive salary. Though promising, the hive system needed time to perfect. Previously, Amado personally transported cocaine from Colombia to Mexico, then distributed it to other Mexican factions for shipment to the U.S., but during the system's construction, he stopped going to Colombia, angering his supplier, the Cali cartel. Pacho summoned Amado to demand answers. Hearing about this new system, Pacho wasn't impressed and even threatened to give the transport routes to the Tijuana cartel. "Unless I'm dead, no one's taking my product." Pacho replied coldly, "Just don't let your corpse stain my fur rug." That night, Amado met Pacho again. After hearing his pitch, Pacho seemed slightly swayed. "How long do you need?" "Give me 2 months." 1 month. After relentless work, the hive system officially launched. Even when some worker bees were caught, police could extract nothing useful, since pickups were arranged with secret codes and a robotic voice giving time and location. Thanks to this security, Juarez grew stronger than ever. But at the same time, the Felix brothers in Tijuana were attacked by El Chapo's Sinaloa cartel. The older Felix brother wanted Amado's opinion before striking back, but Amado was preoccupied with shocking news. In December 1993, Pablo Escobar was shot dead in Medellin. Amado instantly knew his moment had arrived. With Medellin gone, Cali now controlled Colombia's market entirely. Amado arranged a meeting in Cuba with Pacho, and, for the first time, met Cali's secret bosses, Gilberto and Santa Cruz. His proposal: Cali would let him transport their product, taking a cut as payment. This way, Cali's money flow stayed internal, minimizing DIA exposure, while Amado gained entry into the U.S. retail market. They'd divide territories in advance to avoid conflict. It was a win-win, and the Cali bosses agreed. While Amado moved closer to becoming Mexico's #1 drug lord, the Felix brothers, unable to reach him, decided to go to war with Sinaloa. David, who had played a major role in the bar attack, was tasked with forming a special hit squad. Born in San Diego and jailed for murder at 16, David quickly recruited a group of black gunmen. As Tijuana prepared for war, Sinaloa was still scrambling for new smuggling routes. The failed bar attack hadn't killed the Felix brothers but ensured their revenge, and cut off Sinaloa's path through Tijuana. Unable to contact Amado, Palma headed to the Gulf to negotiate, while El Azul and El Chapo went to see Mayo. Mayo told them bluntly that their tiny boat was no match for the storm they were facing. Just then, El Azul got a call from Palma. The Gulf faction had refused to let them use their smuggling route. Before they left, El Chapo couldn't help but ask, "If you were us, what would you do?" "Lay low for a while, wait for the storm to pass, treat your men generously, you'll need their loyalty, keep looking for Amado. He hates letting friends down, and one more thing, my friend, pray for an earthquake in Tijuana." Mayo wasn't a big name in the business yet, but his words showed he was destined to make it big. Following El Azul's advice, El Chapo hid out in a safe house in Guadalajara. Weeks of being cooped up made him restless. When he heard Amado was returning to Ciudad Juarez, he decided, "We'll meet him in person, he won't turn us down." But the younger Felix brother had already learned El Chapo's flight details. After consulting his older brother, they planned an ambush at the airport. The next day, El Chapo arrived at Guadalajara airport as planned, even hiring local police as escorts. He had no idea he was being tracked. Felix had brought his special hit squad. Felix and David split up. David monitored outside while Felix moved inside. As soon as El Chapo appeared, a Felix gunman outside opened fire but missed and was quickly shot dead by police. Felix burst out of the terminal, gunning down the two police escorts. El Chapo scrambled over a divider, jumped into a white car, and tried to flee. Felix radioed David in the parking lot. David located the vehicle and opened fire, killing both occupants. But when Felix approached, he found the car empty. El Chapo had fled on foot. Among the dead was one of the most beloved priests in the country. In broad daylight, two major cartels had turned an airport into a war zone, leaving 7 civilians dead, including the respected priest. The public was outraged. News reports named the culprits, the Felix brothers of Tijuana and the 3 leaders of Sinaloa, with special emphasis on El Chapo as the most dangerous. "They were trying to kill me, I never touched the priest," El Chapo protested. His associate replied, "Kid, the government's at war with both sides now, no one cares about the truth." To answer public outrage and prepare for the upcoming free trade agreement, the U.S. and Mexico formed a joint task force to crush both cartels. The Mexican military would take the lead, with the U.S. providing intelligence and sending an agent to Tijuana. Walt, our old friend from the first 2 seasons, volunteered. In Tijuana, Walt met General Rebollo, the man who once captured Amado and burned over $1 million worth of his product. Impressed by his resolve, Walt knew he was in the right place. Meanwhile, realizing how dangerous things had become, El Chapo decided to flee south, to Guatemala. Felix's older brother thought there was nothing to worry about. In Tijuana, with his extensive network, he believed he could rely on his connections to get through this crisis. But clearly, he still didn't understand human nature. Both his sister and younger brother urged him to lay low for a while, but he insisted that his powerful political contacts would help him. To his surprise, after calling everyone on his list, not a single person answered. As the saying goes, when you're on top, everyone's a friend. When you're down, no one picks up the phone. Just then, a local priest answered his call. At that moment, having the church's support was crucial. After saying goodbye to his sister, Felix's older brother headed to a cafe to meet him, unaware that the area had been turned into a trap. Streets were blocked, and the cafe was filled with soldiers. He arrived with his bodyguards, and when the priest heard the commander's signal, he stood up to greet him. The moment Felix's older brother stepped inside, they would arrest him. Unaware, he casually walked toward the entrance, but then noticed the priest's tense expression. Looking down both sides of the street, he saw that the once busy road was now eerily empty. Realizing it was a setup, he immediately turned back toward his car. The ambush team moved in. He sped away, only to find a military vehicle blocking his path. He reversed, but 2 more vehicles cut him off. With no escape, he and his bodyguards prepared to fight. Suddenly, his younger brother appeared with reinforcements, blowing up the nearby military vehicle and yelling for them to get in. The 4 men sped off, escaping the trap. The operations commander, General Rebollo, decided not to give chase once they were out of range. Back home, he told his sister what had happened. It turned out she had sent their brother to help when she feared for his safety. Realizing she was right, he finally agreed to go into hiding. When Walt heard the news, he was furious and demanded to know why Rebollo didn't order the arrest, but the general had his reasons. In this never-ending war on drugs, victory was only possible with public support. He wouldn't risk civilian casualties that might turn the people against them. After a frank discussion, Walt understood his point. Then came good news from Rebollo. "We let Felix's brother slip away, but a few hours ago, El Chapo was captured at the Guatemala border." When El Chapo reached the border, he had already bribed Guatemalan police and handed them a prepared bag to cross safely. But soon after, those same officers betrayed him. He was handed over to Mexican authorities, sentenced to 20 years for multiple charges, and locked in a maximum security prison. Ironically, this prison sentence was a blessing in disguise. Before, he was just a small-time player in the Sinaloa cartel. Inside, he met Netu, an influential mentor who would help him become the most powerful drug lord in the world. While the Felix brothers and El Chapo were both weakened by their feud, Amado in Ciudad Juarez focused solely on his own operations, becoming the leader of 3 cartels overnight. But then came unexpected news. The Lord of the Skies had more money than he could even spend. After successfully partnering with the Cali cartel, payment for transportation switched from cash to cocaine. This allowed Amado to enter the U.S. retail market, moving around 5 tons a month and making $180 million in profit. But the good times didn't last. Pacho from Cali arrived with shocking news. After Medellin's collapse, Cali's leaders didn't want to share the same fate. They had agreed to the government's proposal: serve a few years in prison, keep their fortunes intact and re-emerge as legitimate businessmen. This was a bolt from the blue for Amado. He had just lost his most reliable supply source, the Cali cartel, and now had to find a new one. Tijuana faced the same problem. With the Felix brothers' leader in hiding, the cartel was left under the control of Enadina. She reached out to Colombia's North Valley cartel and was awaiting a response. Enadina called Amado, hoping they could join forces to secure a new supply and drive prices down. Amado didn't object, but after hanging up, he immediately arranged a meeting with Orlando, the boss of North Valley. At this moment, Amado held the upper hand. Only his air fleet could transport such massive quantities for Colombia. I need product. 4 tons a week. Amado mentioned he'd be meeting other suppliers later that afternoon. Orlando quickly cut him off. No need to look elsewhere. North Valley is happy to serve you. Amado laid down his condition: North Valley would supply him exclusively. This effectively cut off Tijuana's supply. After weighing both sides, Orlando decisively chose Amado. When Enadina heard the news, she was furious. After consulting with her brother, she decided to show Tijuana's strength. Mayo's fishing vessel used for smuggling was set on fire. Sinaloa's El Azul was gunned down in the street. The police chief almost caught the Felix boss, but the younger brother shot him dead. Amado was ambushed in a restaurant but narrowly escaped. This all-out war pushed Mayo, once neutral, into joining the weakest cartel, Sinaloa. He visited El Chapo in prison and pledged allegiance. Mayo's first move was to contact Amado. Amado was surprised. You know Sinaloa isn't worth much now, right? They have manpower, they just need leadership. What they lack is a foothold at the border. Mayo believed the Felix brothers were desperate, fighting enemies on all fronts, and this was the perfect chance to quietly take their turf. The key is to act in silence. Silent moves were Amado's specialty, from toppling Miguel to dealing blows to Tijuana. What do you need from me? El Chapo has men. I need cash and product to operate. After a brief pause, Amado agreed to front Mayo the money and product, on one condition: make the entire Felix family disappear. The prison housing El Chapo was more of a training camp for criminals, run by a seasoned veteran named Netu. Once Miguel's strategist, he'd been betrayed and jailed. Meeting Netu transformed El Chapo into a future drug lord. At this point, the Sinaloa cartel was in shambles. Palma was on the run, El Azul was dead, El Chapo was imprisoned, and Mayo was marked by Tijuana. Mayo seized the moment. While Tijuana was busy fighting the military, he quietly bought out their turf. El Chapo was worried. Every time they'd gone to war with Tijuana, it ended badly, but Netu explained, before they fought openly, Mayo was infiltrating piece by piece. Any dealer getting product from Tijuana had to pay a toll to the Felix family. Mayo brought in men and weapons. Anyone who resisted was killed, anyone who obeyed was recruited. Soon, most small-time dealers in Tijuana knew the Felix family had lost control. El Chapo finally understood Mayo's strategy: manpower from Sinaloa, product and money from Amado, and patience. Tijuana's downfall was only a matter of time. Of course, Amado wouldn't lose out. When the snipe and the clam fight, he would be the fisherman reaping the reward. He went to meet Orlando, the leader of the North Valley cartel, to ensure that after Cali surrendered to the government, they would still supply him with goods regularly and on time. Once again, Orlando reassured Amado but added a condition: since North Valley had a long-standing feud with Cali, they wanted to take advantage of Pacho's last visit to Mexico to carry out an assassination. Although Amado was close to Pacho, to secure his own business, he silently agreed to Orlando's plan. However, right after the meeting, Amado called Pacho to try to convince him to leave Cali. Pacho disagreed with the government surrender plan but considered the other 2 Cali bosses as brothers, so he still decided to follow their arrangement. Amado could only hang up in frustration. At the same time, the Voice of Tijuana newspaper, while investigating Amado's associate Hank, dragged him into a serious scandal. That morning, a gruesome scene appeared on a bridge in Tijuana: a man hanging in midair, the same person who had recently been persuading small-time dealers to side with Mayo. Mayo immediately knew the Felix family had discovered he was secretly taking their territory. Despite their threats, Mayo refused to back down. Behind him stood not only El Chapo of Sinaloa but also Amado of Ciudad Juarez. Mayo met with Amado, saying the Felix family was on the verge of collapse and now was the perfect time to seize Tijuana. He asked Amado to supply him with more product, but Amado refused. Mayo found this strange. After all, Amado had once been attacked by the Félix family, so why wouldn't he want someone to take revenge for him? What puzzled Mayo even more was that after a priest was killed in a shootout between two cartels, the military launched raids across Mexico, yet Ciudad Juarez, Amado's stronghold, was untouched. Of course, Amado wasn't about to reveal the real reason. Mayo had no choice but to return to face the Félix family's counterattack. While the three cartels were locked in conflict, Voice of Tijuana dug deeper into Amado's bank transactions. They discovered he was sending $200,000 each month to a mysterious woman, suspecting Hank was behind her. But after days of investigation, they were shocked to learn that the person behind her wasn't Hank, but General Rebolo, the commander of the anti-drug operation. No wonder Ciudad Juarez had never been targeted by the military. When the article was published, it hit the US and Mexican governments like a thunderclap. The man leading the crackdown was on a cartel's payroll. DEA agent Walt, part of the operation, was stunned. He confronted Rebolo in Tijuana's command center. "You think this is wrong. You should understand better than anyone. Our governments don't want to fight this war, they just want to put on a show. I did what needed to be done to finish the job." Walt stormed off, walking away from the man he once trusted most. Soon after, Rebolo was arrested and imprisoned, and the operation was halted. The Félix family's eldest brother, once hunted into hiding, could now return home openly. Knowing his cover was blown, Amado decided it was time to retire. He told his accountant, Corral, to transfer $15 million a month into a secret account, without Hank's knowledge. He gave his ex-wife 2 bags of cash, then called his girlfriend in Brazil to tell her he had bought a beachside villa in Chile. He told her to go there first. He would join her after finishing business, but Amado didn't realize Hank had already caught on to his moves. Meanwhile, Sinaloa boss Palma ended up in government custody, where he coincidentally met El Chapo again. Once a flamboyant leader always surrounded by followers, Palma didn't know that El Chapo had changed, quietly groomed by Neto into a true leader. One day, while El Chapo was being briefed on Mayo's activities in Tijuana, Palma showed up. Out of respect for his old boss, El Chapo revealed his and Mayo's plans, but Palma objected to touching Tijuana, which El Chapo took as an insult. The next day, prison guards told El Chapo, "All your stuff is packed." After the guard left, Neto asked, "You're leaving?" "It's Palma." Neto nodded in approval. It seemed El Chapo had mastered the leadership lessons he'd been taught. Together, they watched Palma leave. Palma glared at him furiously. "You think you're the boss now? You'll always be just a member of Sinaloa. Sinaloa is mine. It's mine and Mayo's now." And just like that, the former boss was quietly pushed out. Neto stood by, amused at his misfortune. He joked that Palma would calm down soon anyway. After all, his new prison was by the seaside. Maybe he'd even send postcards. Then, unexpectedly, a guard walked up. "You too, Neto." Neto was stunned. Clearly, El Chapo had grown into a true leader, one who didn't need advisors constantly whispering in his ear. With one last shred of dignity, Neto told him, "I'll send you a picture." From that moment, El Chapo became the undisputed leader of the Sinaloa cartel, even from behind bars. Meanwhile, Mayo had just taken care of an enemy. After the army withdrew from Tijuana, the Félix family sought revenge. The younger Félix brother tracked down Mayo's hideout in Sinaloa and led a hit squad there. On the way, they were stopped by a police car. He flashed a badge, claiming they were headed to investigate a case, but the female officer ordered them out. As he turned, he spotted the male officer's shoes. He recognized them as Mayo's men. Both sides drew guns at the same time, and both shooters went down. When Enadina heard her brother had been killed, her hatred for Sinaloa deepened. The war between the two factions continues to this day. Now the largest cartel was Ciudad Juarez, led by Amado, and he was on the run, heading to a small airstrip to fly to Chile and reunite with his girlfriend. Amado found police already waiting at the plane. Gunfire erupted, his driver was killed, and the car crashed into a barricade. He fled on foot with a few loyal men while others provided cover. They dashed toward the plane, but just as it was ready to take off, the engine was hit. Amado abandoned the plane and escaped with backup, but leaving the country was no longer an option. That night, he called his girlfriend, telling her to go to Chile ahead of him. The next day, he visited a cosmetic surgery clinic in Mexico City. Alone in the room, he made a phone call. Soon after, local police got an anonymous tip. When they arrived, the doctor said Amado's surgery had failed. On July 7, 1997, Amado was reported dead from heart failure during surgery. His brother Vicente, who had been running the cartel in his absence, was arrested. All his planes were seized, and his girlfriend went to Chile alone. Hank, watching the news, breathed a sigh of relief. But the DEA didn't buy it. After the body was identified, it mysteriously vanished. The 2 surgeons who operated on him were found dead. The show's creators don't believe he died either, hinting at clues. For instance, in a Chilean beachfront villa, only Amado's girlfriend is seen on camera, yet there are 2 wine glasses in a toy airplane, the one Amado always carried. With Ciudad Juarez dismantled, Mayo visited El Chapo in prison. That border territory we've been looking for. I think we've found it, Ciudad Juarez. Without Amado, Vicente couldn't hold onto the prize. The future belongs to Sinaloa. Maybe you should think about it. My friend, I need you back. Here's the complete summary of Narcos Mexico Season 3. What do you think of the show? How would you rate it out of 10? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for your interest and support. Goodbye and see you again.